Confidence is an essential quality for pilots to manage, and my headspace followed an interesting dynamic over the first few years of my flying. In Australia, the culture in my learning environment was very conservative. Given my motive was to fly alone in the mountains, I was always on the back foot when trying to convince others of my sanity. In New Zealand, I was somewhat under the radar, but things really changed for me when I went to Europe. Fear is often associated with the unknown, and often the risks are a little different to what you first imagined, as I discovered. I spent 3 months in Europe, about half solo and half with friends. Running with the bulls in the Basque Country, then the imposing greys of the Bavarian Alps. The next day I had an accident with my nemesis of the Alps, an unseen cable. Somehow unscathed, I had time to reflect on life. Slowly I got back into it, but now more than ever, confidence was a key part of the experience. I went back to starting small, here near Innsbruck.
And I'm going to stay at that hut down there tonight. That's where I walked up from. And the other hut where I slept last night is further along that ridge. So I'm quite happy just to stay in this area and just enjoy the view. No pressure. Kind of stress. That is brilliant.
The next part of the trip was with mates from Oz, hiking through the Swiss Alps, but they didn't fly. Back then my paragliding gear wasn't the most comfortable to carry, but it was great to avoid some long descents. There were a lot of stories from the many trips in my first season flying in the European Alps. I ramble on through the memories like I used to ramble through the mountains. There were thoughts for Lloydie, who actually I hadn't yet met, and how his attitude was quite different to the mindset I'd absorbed when I learned in Australia. Lloyd Panikiewicz was a classic Aussie, and before he died from lung cancer, he managed to write memoirs of his interesting life. I remember reading them and thinking it was astonishing that he had actually survived as long as he did. He had some rough times, but he would never give up on going for glory. Learning in Australia and coming to Chamonix, I was accustomed to being delivered the site safety, don't do this, don't do that talk, so I muttered some sensible comment about the conditions to show my thoughtfulness. They simply shrugged off any mention of wind with a casual wave. We have the sun, it goes up. Quite the paradigm shift for me. It's all quite simple, let's just take off and fly. The main event of that trip was a long distance vol biv from within view of the Côte d'Azur to within view of Mont Blanc. Here was another trip. In 2 days I was very happy to fly the parkour route I now know well from gliding, where you often fly it without needing to turn.
On my way, hopefully. I just got off on the spur just back there after going low along those spurs. Well, I think I've earned this today. Well, I just got to climb up to 2,800 metres. Bloody freezing up here! The views are awesome though.
By the time I'd finished in the Pyrenees, I think I got my confidence back. I don't have tracks as I lost my GPS in the cable incident, and the video was from a still camera I'd hung around my neck mounted to a bit of copper, but there were some great stories. Have you read the chapter? Let me know what you think in the comments.